Scampi is equipped with a number of winches. A small one for the main sheet. It's a Lewmar, very worn Lewmar 2 speeds for the Genoa sheets, and then something for the Spinnaker. And as you might see, this Lewmar winch has lost a lot of its... I'll try to fix the light. It is dark here. Has lost a lot of its chrome finish. Let's put it up here. Oh, maybe that's better. Okay, there you go. And another interesting feature is that if we turn this, you hear a very weak clicking and very seldom. So I think that these winches haven't seen any servicing in a substantial amount of time. And I was sort of thinking, this is a 40 winch, which means it has a gear ratio of 40 times, or is able to hold about 800 kilos worth of force. If you have a rope that has, well, just a few hundred kilos of pull onto it, and you're working here and holding on, and this pole, the single pole that's holding this, will fail, the end result is that the sheet will start to go out, and you would hold on probably for dear life and follow this into the winch. And after having spun around a couple of turns, your wrist won't be attached to you any longer, presumably. The best of cases, you just, well, you injure a couple of fingers, but the worst case is far worse. So from a safety perspective, I've actually thought of replacing the Genoa winches. The other ones I'm just going to service because they do look and feel as though they have been seen very little use. In the event that you actually want to replace something like this, first lesson seems to be that unless you replace it with a like-for-like winch, it is not going to fit without some drilling and some tinkering. And the good news is that on this particular boat, I have actually pretty easy access to the bolts, surprisingly easy access, because down here is a glove box of sorts, and in that one, let's see if we can get a picture here, you can actually see the bolts. So presumably it isn't that hard to get into it and get those loosened. Someone seems to have spent some time putting some sort of gunk on top of the threads, but we'll see how that works out. So the first challenge is trying to get into this one, and there are no screws or anything at the bottom here, so I believe there is some sort of circlip or something that you can see on the outside that I need to remove in order to lift this one. Easily serviceable, my ass. Well, once I understood the principle, it wasn't that hard. So, once the circlip was removed, which wasn't so bad, let's lift this baby up. Oh my, look at that. That is a mess. Not too bad, considering how it felt. Bearings, not too bad. The gears seem to be there. Let's take a little peek. Oh, there we have some poles. They are looking a bit sad, aren't they? So they would need to be serviced if I wanted to keep this one. All right, but at least I have access to the bolts, and with a big British screwdriver, they are going to come off, I hope. So I got the bolts, or the nuts rather, unstuck, and started twisting the screws. The threads are full of gunk, takes a lot of effort, so I'm actually gonna cheat and take my drill to do the job. That removal was interesting. The threads are completely filled with some sort of presumably marine sealant. The green stuff is probably residue of corrosion from the bronze upper part reacting to the stainless. However, it was interesting that I could move the screws with the screwdriver. However, they would not lift. So I had to do a bit of pressing from below, and once I had gotten them up a little bit, I used the same key to hold the screws like that, lift them up while I was turning. And it was a rather easy way of removing them. Putting this thing back on to remove it as a complete unit and not lose anything, you have to use, at least I did, use both hands to keep these pulls compressed as you slip it on. But as you can see, the springs are intact, but it's looking a little bit sad. But that's the explanation why it was so quiet. It's so full of dirt. The purpose of the grease is both to keep whatever dirt and dust gets into the winch and keep it in the grease, as well as suck up any excess moisture that isn't drained out of it. So the manufacturers say do maintenance at least every year. With the short sailing season in Sweden, I imagine some people think that they can get away with it by doing it less often. However, I mean, even though we're not sailing as much as you might do in hotter climates, time does actually have a bit of wear and tear as well. So every year is probably not a bad idea. So with a little bit of effort, I managed to pull the old one out with a nice little residue of grease there, and I need to spend some time getting that gunk out of the way so we can start positioning the new ones. And this is what it looks like from the bottom. Actually, I think I'm gonna do a bit of maintenance on this one and see if it isn't going to survive a little bit longer. A little bit of love and care would probably be good for it. Carefully chiseling away at the marine sealant that does feel a little bit like silicone. So having cleared off most of the stuff, I actually used some polish to get rid of the last residues, but I want to seat this properly, so I'm going to sand it a little bit. So now it's rather neat. Just going to clear this off, and then we can start thinking about the fun stuff, putting the new one in. So here it sits. It is not assembled, just put in place. This is a Harken 40 2-speed self-tailing. And the self-tailing part is one of the things I'm really going to appreciate in the future of sailing here. The whole idea of not having to have an extra hand to hold the line while I'm winching in is rather attractive, and it's also part of a safety feature, no hands on the lines. This winch is mainly in aluminum, so it's rather light, 3-point-something kilos. One of the things is that it is marked here with a little bit of an arrow, you can see here, and that is where you have the main gears, and that's the part that's supposedly going to sit 90 degrees to wherever the load is coming from. The whole idea of location of this little arm here is that it should sit at 7 o'clock from whatever position that you are going to use it in, and since I'm probably going to be sitting in the cockpit, I think that I'll put that location a little bit. Actually, no, I'm rather happy with this one, because this means that the line is going to end up in the cockpit as well, which isn't a bad idea at all. So to open this one up seems a little bit easier than the old Lewmar. Excuse all the mess. As you can see, there is an ordinary screw in there. So I'm just going to unscrew that one. Can I do that without holding the thing together? Yeah, I can. Look at that. And I think there are quite a few turns to this one. Right now it feels as though it's loose. Let's see if it is. Not yet. Keep on twisting, keep on turning. Hey. So, there you go. So the screw sits in there. Nice white marine grease, happy to see that. I don't think that I will be doing any maintenance on that one this year. Then these screws are a little bit tough, but can come undone. I'm releasing them a few extra turns because this winch has a rather neat feature. I'm not going to have to dismantle it completely. Can actually leave them in. You might see some black protrusions here, and they also help to keep this one in place. But by lifting this up, yeah, of course, it doesn't work when you're trying to show something when you're doing this with one hand. There you go. Just like that. And having done that removal, I believe this one just comes loose. Also well lubricated, but not excessively, so I think it's a good hint of how much to use. Never use too much, never use too little. Finding a clean spot to put that in, over there. So, now we have the Harken winch in all its glory. And we can start by trying to locate where it should be sitting. I'll do some positioning and then I'll mark the new drill holes and see where that takes us. If I'm extremely unlucky, the new drill holes are going to be right adjacent to the old ones, or one of them, and it's going to be very hard to do that drilling, so we need to do a bit of plastic work. But let's see where it takes us. And just realizing that just as I was about to start drilling some new holes, I put some masking tape on here and marked up where the holes would be. And I started thinking to myself, well, why aren't there any drill holes where I believe it's going to be the most force on it, pushing the hole forward like this because of the pull of the lines, and there will be no holes here. Now, they did say 90 degrees to wherever the line was coming in, and of course the line is coming in so that it is spun in the counterclockwise direction, sorry, the clockwise direction, and therefore the line will be coming in on this side and not that side as I first thought. So, I'm going to have to do this all over again and remark things. In the instructions there is an alternative way of mounting the winch, but I thought that one was harder. So, new position with the cogwheels facing this way, and I put some masking tape on, dual purpose being it's easier to mark with a pencil and it's harder to slip with a drill. So let's hope that it works. So when drilling, the screws that were recommended were M6, and the 6 is basically the diameter of the screw, and if you want to put it through freely, you should add a little bit more to the diameter. 0.5 millimeter is what they talk about when you are working in metals, but since I've been mucking about here a bit, and I also have equipped myself with some nice washers, I've actually allowed myself to use an 8 millimeter drill bit for this one, and yeah, they dropped into place. Fantastic. So now it's just about gunking it up and attaching the nuts to the underside. So, having put some marine style gunk onto the screws down here, I've also sealed off the old holes to keep water from getting in from there. And I think the trick is not to use too much, because you don't want to restrict the evacuation of the dewatering holes on the winch either. So I think even in this case, less might be more. Let's see if it still fits now. So another lesson learned was that if you drop your tools over the side, they might be gone forever. This is dark, it's 5.5 degrees, and the ground below me is full of sticks and straws, but I actually found it. So I'm pretty grateful for that. So be careful if you start losing things over the side. They might be lost forever unless you like to dive if you're doing this when the boat is in water, or as I have it here, in the middle of a bush or something. So yeah, I'm gonna be more careful. So a word on the fasteners. I have used A4 stainless steel quality. I believe that's the only thing that will work in a marine environment. If you go to a sort of a car shop or something, they will probably try to sell you A2 quality, which is stainless but not so good. So that's going to rust pretty quickly if you have the least salt in the air around you. So A4 is the thing to go for. So I think I've positioned the things nicely now. The arm is sitting pretty much where I like it to be. Perhaps I would have liked it to be like 10 or 15 degrees to the left, but you know, you can't have everything. So let's just assemble the thing in proper order. Then it's time for the other side. Yeah, and of course you check that it works before you screw everything down tight, which I did. Nice clickety-clickety-click. Hole's working fine, stopping very quickly. So this one moves, I think, about a quarter of what the old one did before it actually blocks. So nice. I'm very happy with this. Let's see how this goes when we start sailing. Starboard side was done accordingly. Hope you enjoyed this clip, and please like, comment, share and subscribe. And here's a list of what I used for the job, which took approximately 3 hours to complete thanks to a messy removal of old screws. So as caretakers and crew of sailing vessel Ania, we wish you happy sailing and hope to see you again.